At 07:42 a.m., low over the Channel's grey churn, the wooden wings ashudder, wind claws at the glass. A Merlin engine coughs, just once, before roaring again, a predator refusing to die. Inside the tight cockpit, sweat beads along a brow already flecked with sawdust memories. This is not a pilot's story alone. It belongs to the man who built the skin holding this machine together. Ernest Blake grips the edge of a map table bolted into the fuselage behind the pilot's seat, knuckles whitening as anti-aircraft bursts crack against the sky like hammer blows on a boatyard plank. Flimsy wooden toy. That's what the Germans laughed. Spruce, balsa and glue. Madness, they said. But the Luftwaffe is scrambling now. A flak burst punches a shockwave through the hull. The wooden ribs hum instead of tearing. Ernest swallows hard. He helped shape every curve. And today, every bolt is his heartbeat. Ahead, France, occupied, waiting. And something they never planned for is about to happen. The smell hits first. Not fuel, not hot steel, wood. Warm, living, stubborn wood. The de Havilland factory at Hatfield thrums with handsaw rhythm and the chatter of RAF pilots coming and going. Outside, blast walls and sandbags squat like sleeping beasts. Inside, workbenches fill with spruce spars, thin balsa sheets, and glue that sticks harder than fear. It is a war, but here, the weapons grow from trees. Ernest Blake brushes curls of pale wood from his sleeves. Brought up in Dorset shipyards, he learned to listen to grain like some men listen to prayer. When Geoffrey de Havilland himself walked through the yard in July 1940, searching for craftsmen who could build speed from silence, Ernest raised his hand. Now he smooths the curve of a wing rib, a piece of the first prototype. Every gram matters, says Chief Draftsman Alec, rolling a blueprint tube like a baton. Luftwaffe says we're building firewood. Ernest snorts softly. Hope they keep saying it. Outside, sirens wail again. The Luftwaffe over London. Ash drifts north. A young fitter's boy pauses, staring at the sky, as if expecting it to fall on Hatfield next. Ernest presses wood into place. War is noise, but sometimes victory starts in quiet. And this quiet will not last. Records from the Air Ministry show the Mosquito program authorized in March 1940 as a high-speed unarmed bomber. Metal was scarce. Wood was abundant. The proposal faced resistance from procurement officers who favored armored heavy bombers. But de Havilland's team persisted with a simple calculation. If speed exceeded 400 miles per hour, fighters could not catch it. Armour became unnecessary weight. Ernest worked through August nights as German bombers pounded London 50 miles south. The factory shook with distant concussions. Wooden frames absorbed vibration better than anyone expected. By September, the first prototype fuselage took shape, balsa sandwich between birch plywood, bonded with casein adhesive under heat and pressure. A test. Engineer ran stress calculations on a rib section. It's stronger than we thought, he muttered, surprised. Ernest nodded. Wood bends, metal breaks. That autumn, while fighter command bled over Kent, carpenters from furniture workshops arrived at Hatfield. War had transformed cabinet makers into aircraft builders. Ernest trained them in techniques borrowed from boat building, scarf joints, grain orientation, moisture control. Precision mattered more than speed. In October, a Luftwaffe intelligence report dismissed the project. Wooden aircraft of no military significance. Ernest read the intercepted translation pinned to a notice board. He smiled. Let them underestimate. Let them laugh. Wood remembers everything, and it does not forgive miscalculation. Rain stings. Fog clings to the field like a final doubt on November 25, 1940. The prototype W405 glints strange and pale under the dull morning at Hatfield. Not metal, not armour, just wood, lacquered tight, shaped by hands that never fired a gun. Ernest stands among technicians, collar turned up, watching Geoffrey de Havilland Jr. climb into the cockpit. The air tastes of damp grass and aviation fuel. "If it comes apart," Alec murmurs, "we'll never hear the end of it." Ernest flexes his fingers. He remembers glue on knuckles, nights sanding ribs until his shoulders howled. No armour plating, no gun turrets, just two Rolls-Royce Merlins and the belief that speed outruns bullets. Engines howl awake, wooden propellers blur, takeoff roll, every heartbeat is hammer on hull. Then, lift, climb. The Mosquito rises like it never doubted. Ernest releases a breath he didn't know he held. A voice crackles from the ground radio. W4050 airborne, climbing steady. The German High Command called the very idea absurd. A Luftwaffe intelligence note labelled it a lightweight nuisance. A nuisance is airborne and climbing. Flight tests through December confirmed what de Havilland predicted. At 22,000 feet, W4050 reached 392 miles per hour, faster than any operational fighter in service. The prototype carried no armament, yet outpaced Spitfires and Hurricanes in level flight. Test pilot reports noted exceptional handling and minimal vibration. Ernest watched it disappear into cloud. His palms trembled with cold and terror that the dream could still shatter. By January 1941, the Air Ministry ordered production variants, photo reconnaissance first, then bombers. Metal shortages accelerated the decision. Britain needed aircraft faster than aluminum mills could supply. Wood offered an answer. Records show the ministry allocated contracts to furniture factories across England. Piano manufacturers in High Wycombe received fuselage orders. Coach builders in Loughborough shaped wing panels. A dispersed production network emerged, decentralised to survive bombing. Ernest studied production schedules. 15 aircraft per month by summer, 30 by autumn. Ambitious numbers for an untested design. A memo arrived from the ministry. Expedite prototype trials, operational deployment by September. Sometimes flight is faith in hands and glue, but faith must scale to squadrons. Ernest looked at the prototype one last time before engineers towed it inside for modification trials. The wooden skin reflected nothing. No shine, no glory, just quiet certainty. War needed metal monsters, but sometimes monsters lose to shadows. Factories transform fast in war. The wood shop at Hatfield is now a battlefield of blueprints and splinters by winter 1941. Women sand fuselage halves, men shape wing spars with the precision of violin makers. Glue pots steam like field kitchens. Ernest adjusts clamp pressure on a fuselage mould. "Uniform tension," he mutters, like a prayer. He hears pilots boast about Spitfires, Hurricanes, metal birds that clawed the sky in the Battle of Britain. But here, they build ghosts. The Mosquitoes promise no armour, just speed, no guns, yet. But rumours run, photo reconnaissance first, then bomber variants, then night fighters. "Enemy still thinks it's a joke," Alex says, slapping a German intercept transcript on the bench. Quote, "English wooden aircraft, no threat." Ernest smirks. Good, let 'em laugh. Production records from March 1941 show the first batch of PR-MKI variants rolling out. Stripped of all armament, fitted with reconnaissance cameras in the bomb bay, painted pale blue for high-altitude missions. The goal, photograph enemy positions faster than fighters could intercept. By May, 23 Mosquitoes completed initial production. Quality control rejected 4 for delamination issues. Wood swells and contracts with humidity. Ernest implemented moisture checks at every assembly stage. Workers learned to feel for inconsistencies, a slight roughness, an uneven joint. A transport rumbles by carrying the first production fuselage. Real. Ready. Night falls outside. Workers stay, shoulders aching, eyes raw, because in London's blacked out streets, families shelter in basements, and every second saved here might save a street there. Air Ministry directives stressed urgency. German U-boats threatened Atlantic convoys. Luftwaffe bombers still struck British cities. Photo reconnaissance could map defences, guide strikes, assess damage, but reconnaissance aircraft needed speed above all else. Ernest wipes lacquer from his brow. The wood smells warm, alive. A young woman, formerly a piano finisher from Essex, approaches with a wing panel. "This grain pattern," she says, pointing. "Is it acceptable?" Ernest examines it. Slight irregularity, but within tolerance. "It'll hold," he confirms. She nods, relieved. Her brother flies Wellingtons over Germany. She works nights to shorten his war. Tomorrow, frame by frame, they'll build enough wings to turn silence into thunder. Ernest hopes they're fast enough. He fears they're not, but hope and fear both bend to the same discipline. One joint at a time, one rib, sanded true, one layer of glue cured, under pressure. Wood does not forgive haste, and neither does war. Dawn leaks pale gold across the airfield at RAF Benson in September 1941, home of No. 1 Photographic Reconnaissance Unit. Mosquito PR. Mackay sits ready, lenses glinting like cold eyes, designed to see everything, outrun anything. Ernest stands beside the aircraft, summoned to field test repairs. His boots sink in dew. A pilot in a worn jacket, Flight Lieutenant Tony Hill, approaches, wiping oil from his hands. "They say you helped build her." "Aye," Ernest replies, hand resting on wood, like flesh. "I know every grain." Tony chuckles. "Let's hope Jerry can't find them." Engines roar. Take off. The reconnaissance Mosquito lifts into cloud toward Brest. German radar watches, but Mosquito climbs fast, thin and swift. At 30,000 feet it streaks over U-boat pens and battleships. Operational records confirm September 20th, 1941, first Mosquito reconnaissance mission. Target Brest and Bordeaux harbours, aircraft W4055, pilot Flight Lieutenant A.E. Hill, altitude 30,000 feet, speed estimated 380 miles per hour. Enemy response, BF-109s, scrambled but unable to intercept. Film quality, excellent. Hours later, clouds break and the aircraft returns, unscathed. Film canisters glint, no escorts, no hits. Tony jumps down, grin wide. "They didn't lay a finger on me." Ernest smiles, relief heavy. A machine he helped build just slipped through a continent armed for killing. Wood outran steel. Intelligence officers developed the film immediately. Photographs showed German battleships Scharnhorst and Gneisenau at dock, U-boat construction facilities, coastal gun emplacements. Resolution exceeded expectations. The cameras captured details metal reconnaissance aircraft could not reach, flying too low, too slow, too vulnerable. Within a week, Mosquito reconnaissance missions became routine. Pilots reported minimal enemy contact. When German fighters did intercept, the Mosquito climbed or accelerated beyond engagement range. Loss rates remained near zero through autumn. Somewhere in Berlin, a Luftwaffe officer reads a report and frowns. By November, reconnaissance Mosquitoes photographed targets across occupied Europe. Norway, Denmark, northern France, the Low Countries. Each mission returned data impossible to obtain otherwise. The wooden aircraft redefined what reconnaissance meant. Not just survival, but superiority. Ernest returned to Hatfield with field reports. Pilots requested minor adjustments, improved cockpit heating, better oxygen systems for high-altitude work. Engineering teams responded within weeks. The toy has teeth they cannot see yet, and it watches everything. Production ramps through spring 1942, wood dust coats lungs, machines hum at Hatfield. Ernest oversees a line of young carpenters, many former cabinet makers, piano builders, furniture men. War has turned artisans into armourers. A supervisor shoves a memo under Ernest's elbow. Expedite B, Mach 4 bomber configuration. Priority. Precision low-level strike capability. Bombers, wooden bombers. The skeptics in Whitehall scoffed. Give us metal, not whimsy. But orders are war's truth. The B-Mach 40 variant carried a 2,000-pound bomb load internally, no external racks. Smooth aerodynamic profile maintained speed advantage. Design specifications called for delivery at 300 feet altitude, 300 miles per hour. Fast enough to evade flak, low enough to strike with precision. A loud crack, one apprentice over-tightened a clamp. The fuselage seam splinters. Ernest steps in, gentle voice firm. Feel the tension, wood talks if you listen. He helps reposition the piece, hands patient, movements measured. In war, mistakes cost more than time. Outside, a training mosquito screams overhead, barely above tree height. Workers glance up, pride and fear intertwined. They hear stories now of mosquitoes outrunning Bf-109s, returning clean while escorts bled. Production data from May 1942 shows output reaching 37 aircraft per month. Furniture factories contributed major assemblies. Salisbury Hall, a secret facility north of London, produced prototypes for new variants. The dispersed network survived German bombing. Even when Hatfield sustained damage in night raids, production continued elsewhere. Rumour, Göring furious, calling British criminals for building aircraft from furniture wood. Ernest smiles at that. Furniture doesn't fly at 400 miles per hour. A technical challenge emerged, installing 4 20mm cannons and 4 .303 machine guns in the nose without compromising structural integrity. Engineers redesigned the forward fuselage, reinforcing bulkheads, redistributing weight. Ernest supervised stress testing, firing guns on the ground, measuring vibration, checking for cracks. The fighter-bomber variant, FB Makovics, would become the most produced Mosquito model, but in spring 1942 it remained theoretical. Mid-shift whistle blows, workers stretch sore backs, sip weak tea. Ernest gazes at the assembly hall. These aren't planes, they're promises, but promises don't stop bullets. Speed must be enough. A letter arrived from a reconnaissance pilot, forwarded through official channels. Tell the builders their work saved my life. 3 times now. Ernest folds it into his pocket. Proof beyond doubt, the machines work, but can production match demand before metal aircraft render wood obsolete? That question haunts every shift. Fog parts at RAF Marham in October 1942 as bomber squadron crews gather. Mosquito B Makwaifi sits loaded for a precision raid on the Gestapo headquarters in Oslo. Operation Freshman whispers through briefings. High stakes, long range. Ernest arrives with a technical crew, sent to diagnose a persistent vibration in one aircraft's starboard wing. He crawls beneath, fingers running along plywood skin, smooth, tight, no delamination. Pilots shuffle maps, engineers debate fuel mix, and a radio officer reviews weather over Scandinavia. Ernest feels the weight, his work thousands of feet over freezing sea. A flight lieutenant kneels beside him. They laugh at us in Berlin, he mutters. Wooden bomber, no guns. But if we get through? Ernest nods. Speed is strength. Mission planning specified 4 Mosquitoes, each carrying 4 500-pound bombs. Target, Gestapo headquarters, Victoria Terrasse, Oslo. Intelligence reported resistance leaders held there. Interrogations ongoing. Timing critical. Distance, over 700 miles each way. No fighter escort possible. Survival depended entirely on speed and surprise. Engines warm. Crew climb aboard. Ernest backs away, heart clamped. The raid launches at dawn, but weather over Norway turns vicious. Icing conditions at 12,000 feet, turbulence over the North Sea. One Mosquito forced back with engine trouble. 2 others pressed on, descending through cloud over Oslo Fjord. Flak erupted. German gunners, surprised by the low-altitude approach, fired wildly. One Mosquito dropped bombs directly on target. Eastern wing of Victoria Terrace collapsed. The second aircraft's bombs struck adjacent buildings. Norwegian civilians scattered. Gestapo officers died in the rubble, but mission assessment marked it as partial success. One aircraft damaged by flak, returning with hydraulic failure. The other 2 made it back, but cloud cover prevented accurate damage assessment. Photo reconnaissance missions days later confirmed significant destruction. Back in England, Ernest studies the shaken crew's faces, frostbite, exhaustion. But the aircraft returned. The machine held. Now the mission must. Operational records show Mosquito bomber missions increased through late 1942. Targets included factories, rail yards, U-boat facilities. Loss rates remained below 3%, far lower than heavy bomber formations suffering 10 to 15% losses per mission. A pattern emerged. Mosquitoes struck fast, withdrew faster. German defences, calibrated for slow-flying Lancasters and Halifaxes, could not adjust quickly enough. Flak predictors failed. Fighter interceptions arrived minutes too late. Ernest reviewed after-action reports in the Hatfield office. Each mission generated data: fuel consumption, bomb accuracy, structural stress. Engineers refined designs continuously. The learning curve bent upward, but winter approached, and with it, longer nights and deeper cold. Wood responds to temperature. Glue joints contract. Ernest ordered additional inspections for all operational aircraft. Vigilance never rests. Neither does wood. A telegram arrives at Hatfield in February 1943. Berlin raid success, accurate strike, Mosquitoes untouched. Ernest breathes sharp. The Air Ministry sent them to hit Berlin in broad daylight, just to bait German fighters and outrun them, and they had, every aircraft back. RAF intercept logs show Bf 109s failing to close distance. German radio intercepted, impossible, they are too fast. In the workshop, news spreads like fire. Laughter, relief, exhaustion. But work doesn't stop. Production quotas climb. Ernest reviews joints, adjusts humidity controls. Wood swells, shrinks. War doesn't care. The January 30th, 1943 raid targeted Berlin to disrupt a noon ceremony, marking 10 years of Nazi rule. 3 Mosquitoes from No. 105 Squadron departed RAF Marham. They flew at 20,000 feet, reaching Berlin as Goering prepared to broadcast. Bombs struck the Haus der Rundfunks, the main broadcasting station. The ceremony delayed 1 hour, no aircraft lost. German fighters scrambled but arrived after the Mosquitoes departed. One FW-190 pilot reported, "We saw them, could not catch them." A knock at Ernest's shoulder. Alec. Night fighter variant needs your eyes. They're fitting AI Macro-IV radar, cannons in belly pack. Guns now, Ghost Fighter in the dark. The night fighter configuration, NF MACTO, replaced the glazed nose with solid construction housing. AI, airborne interception, radar. A radar operator sat behind the pilot, monitoring the cathode ray tube display. 4 20mm cannons mounted in the belly, 4 .303 machine guns in the nose. Ammunition storage required careful weight distribution. Ernest examined blueprints. The radar added 400 pounds, ammunition another 300 pounds, yet the aircraft maintained performance. Speed exceeded 360 miles per hour, climb rate remained strong. The wooden structure absorbed added weight without penalty. Outside, nightfall comes early, sirens again over London, flames on the horizon reflect in lacquer like wounds. Ernest heads to the finishing hangar, night fighters rest under tarps. Radar operator consoles glow faintly. Hidden teeth, he runs a hand along a nacelle. Hold together, he whispers. They'll need you in the dark. A mechanic overhears. They already do. RAF night defences suffered losses through 1941 and 1942. German bombers, Heinkels, Dorniers, Junkers, struck British cities with relative impunity. Existing night fighters, Beaufighters, Defiants, lacked speed to intercept efficiently. The Mosquito changed calculations. By March 1943, night fighter squadrons began receiving Mosquitoes. Crews trained on radar interception techniques. The combination of speed, radar, and heavy armament created a new threat profile. German bomber crews would learn to fear silence and darkness, and the wooden shadow that brought both. A new weight settles. Speed isn't just salvation, it's responsibility, and the night belongs to those who see in darkness. Darkness thick as coal smoke at RAF Coltishall in May 1943. Mosquito NF Mikhood sits on the line, radar mast like a black horn, crews strap in, night fighters hunting Heinkel. He 111 bombers and Ju 88 intruders. Ernest joins ground mechanics called to refine vibration damping near radar gear. Midnight Dew slicks his sleeves. Engines rumble. Deep, confident. Radio crackle. Intruders crossing North Sea, course 230. A night fighter launches, then another. Ernest watches exhaust flames flicker like angry breath. Beside him, a young ground tech whispers, "Every time they go up, I wonder if glue's enough?" Ernest replies softly, "Glue and will." Ground-controlled interception stations tracked enemy bombers via coastal radar chains. Controllers vectored Mosquito night fighters into position. The AI radar locked targets at 3 miles. Pilots closed to 500 feet, close enough for cannon fire, far enough to avoid debris. Hours crawl. At 03:17, a Mosquito returns, gunsmoke scent clinging. The crew climbs down, tired, victorious. Pilot, Flight Lieutenant J.R.D. Braham. Radar operator, Flight Sergeant W.J. Gregory. 2 Ju-88s. Didn't see us coming. Operational records confirm the kills. German bombers, returning from raids on industrial targets, intercepted over the North Sea. The Mosquito attacked from below and behind. Cannon fire destroyed both aircraft. No return fire. The wooden night fighter remained undetected until too late. Wood, darkness, speed, deadly trinity. Statistics from spring and summer 1943 show Mosquito night fighters accounting for increasing enemy losses. German bomber formations suffered attrition rates climbing above acceptable thresholds. Luftwaffe command issued warnings about wooden night fighters. A German night fighter command log later notes growing dread. Mosquito night fighters, almost impossible to intercept. The irony, Germany possessed night fighters, Bf-110s, Ju-88 night fighter variants, but Mosquitoes hunted bombers, not fighters, and German bombers could not outrun British wooden interceptors. Dawn bruises the sky. Ernest leans against the warm fuselage. The wood hums with cooling heat. He feels pride and fear. By June, Number 85, Squadron transitioned entirely to Mosquito night fighters. Other squadrons followed. Training pipelines expanded. Radar operators learned to interpret screen returns. Pilots practiced night formation flying, gunnery, evasive maneuvers. Ground crews adapted quickly. Wooden aircraft required different maintenance than metal. Moisture checks, glue joint inspections, fabric control surface monitoring. But turnaround times remained fast. Mechanics appreciated the simplicity, fewer hydraulic systems, less complex structure. A report circulated among ground staff. One Mosquito night fighter survived a belly landing on rough terrain. The wooden structure flexed, absorbed impact. Crew walked away. Metal airframe would have crumpled. Ernest read it twice. The machine forgives mistakes, metal cannot. For victories carve a deeper debt to keep building, keep improving, because every life in the sky may hang on a carpenter's patience, and patience, like wood, must endure pressure without breaking. Fog clings low, bitter cold at RAF Hunsdon on February 18, 1944. Crews gather around briefings. Target Amiens prison. Resistance fighters scheduled for execution. Mission: break the walls, free them. Precision low-level strike. Mosquito FB, MKVs armed with bombs, cannons, rockets. Ernest arrives with a field. Repair team, nerves raw. This is beyond engineering. It's salvation by splinter and engine raw. Operation Jericho mission planning identified a narrow window. French resistance leaders imprisoned at Amiens awaited execution. Intelligence specified the date. RAF Bomber Command authorized a rescue attempt. 19 Mosquitoes assigned. 3 squadrons from No. 2 Group. Pilots tug gloves tight. Flares hiss, pale light. Engines ignite. Takeoff. At 50 feet they skim frost-coated fields. Ernest rides in a chase aircraft, seat narrow, shaking hands, steadying maps. France races beneath them, hedgerows like scars. Flak bursts bloom, black flowers, but speed shreds distance. Amiens appears, grey walls, guard towers, snow on rooftops. Lead Mosquitoes dive, bomb bay doors click open. Ernest hears nothing but wind and heartbeat. First bombs hit the outer wall at 12:03 p.m. Dust and stone explode upward. The eastern wall breaches. Guard towers collapse. German guards scatter. Prisoners run, tiny figures amid chaos. Secondary wave strikes main prison block. Walls crumble. Cells open to sky. Smoke rises black against white snow. German guns answer. One Mosquito, piloted by squadron leader I.S. Smith, takes flak damage. The aircraft spirals, trailing smoke, impacts into frozen fields. Fire carves orange into snow. Ernest winces. Hands grip the seat until knuckles ache. The rest pull away, low and fast, trees whipping past. Mission timing flawless. Precision devastating. Operational records confirm 258 prisoners escaped Amiens prison during the attack. Among them, 12 resistance fighters scheduled for execution the following day. German forces recaptured many within hours, but the mission achieved its core objective: disruption and rescue. Cost: 2 Mosquitoes lost to flak, 1 damaged, 6 aircrew killed. In London, the War Office filed the operation under Special Strike Missions. Codebooks would call it Operation Jericho. Ernest sees flames behind them, feels the loss like fracture in wood grain. Back at base, crews debrief. Flight Lieutenant Tony Wickham, who led the first wave, reported, "We hit it exactly as planned, but the cost? No celebration, just exhaustion and silence. Victory and grief fly in the same formation." A message arrived from French contacts days later. "Thank you for the wooden angels." Ernest reads it in the Hatfield office. His hands shake. Wood built walls. Wood broke them. The irony settles heavy. Construction and destruction from the same hands, the same grain. War makes no distinction between building and bombing, only between those who act and those who do not, and the wooden aircraft act with precision metal cannot match. Back at Hatfield in April 1944, the pace is brutal. D-Day looms in whispers and requisitions. Workers push through exhaustion. Glue fumes sting. Women assemble wing panels. Veterans teach apprentices who shake with fatigue. Ernest inspects a batch of plywood sheets. Moisture too high. He orders them, scrapped. A foreman balks. "We don't have time." "We don't have the luxury of failure," Ernest snaps. "One floor and a crew burns." Quality control reports from spring 1944 show rejection rates climbing as production accelerated. The tension between speed and precision intensified. Ministry demands 80 aircraft per month by May. Hatfield and satellite factories strained. A teleprinter rattles. Reports of German jet tests. Messerschmitt Me 262. Metal. Fast. Deadly. Panic murmurs. Could Wood outrun jets? Alec pulls Ernest aside. "We keep building. Keep refining. New two-stage Merlins. Pressurized cockpits. PR MacGig scheme. We adapt." Engineering teams developed countermeasures. The two-stage Merlin 70 series engines increased power output to 1,710 horsepower per engine. Speed rose above 415 miles per hour at altitude. The PR Mech 16 variant, pressurized cockpit, extended range, could photograph targets from 40,000 feet. Jets possessed straight-line speed, but Mosquitoes retained agility, operational ceiling, and production momentum. Germany built jets slowly. Britain built Mosquitoes fast. Ernest nods, weary. Improvement is the only retreat allowed. Outside, a Mosquito test flight screams skyward. Engine note fierce. Inside, clamps tighten, hands sand, sweat drips like resin, training intensified, crews practiced low-level navigation, precision bombing, evasive tactics, night fighter squadrons refined radar interception techniques, photo reconnaissance pilots learned to exploit cloud cover and altitude. A small note arrives from a pilot. "Your Wood saved us again." Ernest folds it into his pocket, proof beyond doubt, production data. From May 1944, 91 Mosquitoes completed. June, 103. The dispersed factory network hit stride. Piano makers shaped fuselage sections. Furniture workshops produced wing ribs. Coach builders assembled tail sections. Central assembly at Hatfield integrated components. The logistics required precise coordination. Wood arrived from Canada. Sitka spruce, Canadian birch. Balsa shipped from Ecuador. Adhesives sourced from chemical plants in the Midlands. Each component tracked, inventoried, inspected. A ministry efficiency report noted, "Mosquito production demonstrates feasibility of non-metallic airframe mass production under wartime constraints." Translation: Wood works when steel runs short. The world is accelerating. But so is the Mosquito. By June 6, 1944, D-Day, Mosquito squadrons provided reconnaissance over Normandy beaches, flew tactical strikes against German positions, and intercepted Luftwaffe bombers attempting night raids on invasion fleets. Ernest listened to BBC broadcasts describing the landings. Wooden aircraft overhead, unseen but essential. Every reconnaissance photograph, every precision strike, every intercepted bomber contributed to success, measured in beachheads, secured, and lives saved. He walked the factory floor that evening. Workers bent over benches, exhaustion etched in shoulders. They knew what was happening across the channel. They knew their work mattered. Ernest said nothing. Sometimes silence carries more weight than words. The Wood remembers every hand that shaped it, and history remembers the hands that did not stop. Night like ink at RAF Wyton in January 1945. Snow on airfield. Ernest stands beside hardened crews prepping for a Berlin raid. Despite jets, the Mosquito remains a dagger of precision. Crew chief grunts, "Odd, isn't it? Wooden plane finishes war metal ones started." Ernest runs fingers across cold fuselage. Warplanes breathe before battle. Tonight, cold breath. Germany fielded Me, 262 jets increasingly through late 1944. Reports showed jet speeds exceeding 500 miles per hour. Conventional piston aircraft faced obsolescence, yet Mosquito operations continued, adapted, refined, lethal. The answer? Jets flew fast but turned slowly. Mosquitoes maneuvered tighter. Jets consumed fuel rapidly. Mosquitoes ranged farther. Jets required concrete runways. Mosquitoes operated from grass fields. Technology alone does not win wars. Application does. Takeoff. They vanish into black. Ernest listens at operations room. Voice crackles. Enemy radar active. Fighters scrambled. Minute by minute tension. Searchlights sweep Berlin. Flak rings the city like iron thorns. Mosquitoes weave, drop bombs with surgical accuracy. Rail yards, Gestapo offices, ministry buildings. Target tonight, Reich Main Security Office. 4 Mosquitoes, each carrying 4 500-pound bombs. Altitude, 22,000 feet. Speed, 380 miles per hour. Approach from northwest. Bomb run northeast. Egress south. German command intercept. Impossible to catch. Like chasing shadows. Return fire misses. Mosquitoes streak home through darkness. Ernest watches shapes emerge through dawn haze. One limps. Hole in port wing. Fabric torn. Wood exposed. Still flying. Wood flexed. Absorbed shock. Lived. Pilot steps down. Pale. Face lined with cold and adrenaline. Saw me 262 flash past. Couldn't turn with us. Too fast to corner. He laughs, half madness. We beat jets in a furniture plane. Operational data from winter 1945 shows Mosquito loss rates remained below 2% despite jet opposition. German defences, stretched thin across multiple fronts, could not concentrate forces. Mosquitoes exploited gaps, struck targets, withdrew before effective response. Ernest exhales, deep, trembling. Wood beat iron, skill beat arrogance, but cost hangs heavy. Too many empty skies behind them. Statistics tell one story. 7,181 Mosquitoes built by war's end. Over 39,000 operational sorties flown. Losses, approximately 254 aircraft to all causes. Return rate, 96%. But numbers do not capture names. Flight lieutenant, squadron leader, pilot officer, ranks and names in logbooks, some with dates of loss beside them. Ernest touches wing, warm with survival. The wood holds heat from engines, from battle, from luck that did not abandon this crew tonight. He remembers a line from a pilot's letter months ago. The Mosquito is forgiving. It brings you home when others would not. Forgiving. The word settles. Wood forgives mistakes, metal punishes. Flexibility over rigidity, adaptation over specification. Germany built faster jets. Britain built 7,781 wooden compromises that refused to break. Sometimes fragile wins because it bends. And bending is not weakness. It is survival shaped by understanding what endures under pressure. The war ends soon. Everyone knows. But tonight, wood still flies. And that is enough. Silence arrives like an unfamiliar guest at Hatfield in May 1945. Victory in Europe. Factory whistles blow, not for shift change, but celebration. Workers cry, laugh, collapse. Glue pots cool, saws rest. Ernest walks the assembly line. Half-finished fuselages sit like ghosts of battles that will never come. A young woman wipes tears from lacquer-stained cheeks. "We can stop sanding ribs," she whispers, voice cracked. Outside, Spitfires fly victory loops. A Mosquito circles once, slow, graceful, as if bowing. Ernest's chest tightens. Pride, relief, grief. Goering's infamous complaint echoes in memory from captured documents. In 1940, I could at least fly as far as Glasgow in most of my aircraft, but not now. It makes me furious when I see the Mosquito. I turn green and yellow with envy. The British, who can afford aluminum better than we can, knock together a beautiful wooden aircraft that every piano factory over there is building. and they give it a speed which they have now increased yet again. What do you make of that? But they had, and it changed everything. Alec approaches with 2 mugs of bitter tea. We did it. Did we? Ernest replies softly. Or did they? The pilots? Alec shakes his head. Both. No speed without wings, no wings without hands. Production ceased rapidly, contracts cancelled, orders suspended. The dispersed factory network dissolved. Piano makers returned to pianos. Furniture workshops returned to furniture. The war economy unwound. Final production numbers: 7,781 mosquitoes delivered. Variants: photo reconnaissance, bomber, night fighter, fighter bomber, trainer, transport, operational theatres, Europe, Mediterranean, Far East, Pacific. Combat record: fewer than 300 lost to enemy action across all theatres, highest return rate of any RAF bomber type, most successful night fighter, most effective photo reconnaissance platform. German assessment: captured post-war. The Mosquito represented one of the most serious threats to German operations. Its speed made interception nearly impossible. Its wooden construction rendered radar detection unreliable. Its operational flexibility exceeded all comparable types. Ernest sips. The tea is terrible. The moment, perfect. Outside, church bells replace sirens. Workers gather belongings. Some cry, some smile. A few sit silent, hands still smelling of glue and sawdust. War employment guaranteed income. Peace brings uncertainty, but peace also brings survival, and survival outweighs everything. Ernest watches the sun set through factory windows. The wooden aircraft changed aerial warfare, but now aluminum returns, jets dominate. The wooden era ends as quickly as it began. Necessity birthed the Mosquito. Abundance will bury it. A young engineer approaches. What happens to all this? He gestures at assembly jigs, moulds, fixtures. Ernest shrugs. Someone will find use, or not. War built these planes. Now peace wonders what to do with them. The answer: very little. Within years, most Mosquitoes would be scrapped. Wood rots faster than metal. Preservation requires effort few can afford. But for tonight, victory tastes like weak tea and sawdust. And that is enough. More than enough. The machines that laughed at metal now rest. Silent. Victorious. Soon forgotten, but not by those who built them, or flew them, or survived because of them. Waves roll soft against chalk cliffs on the Dorset coast in autumn 1946. Ernest sits on a weather-worn bench, a disabled Mosquito museum piece stationed behind him under a canvas tarp. Children chase gulls nearby. War a story they do not fear. He holds a worn scrap of plywood, a piece he saved from W-4050's first test flight. Grains smooth under thumb. Wood remembers. Footsteps crunch gravel. A pilot, older now, cane tapping ground. Ernest nods. The man smiles. They say nothing a while. The sea fills silence with its own language. Finally the pilot murmurs, "I lived because you listened to Wood." Ernest's throat tightens. "We all listened. War forced us." "Maybe," the pilot says. "But it was more than war. It was faith." Faith. The word feels heavy. Faith in calculations and stress tests. Faith in glue that held under temperature extremes. Faith in craftsmen who sanded ribs until shoulders burned. Faith in pilots who trusted wooden skin against steel sky. Wind rushes through seagrass. Gulls cry. Memorial plaque nearby reads, "De Havilland Mosquito, the aircraft the enemy feared most. Not because it was metal, but because it wasn't." Post-war assessments confirmed what operations proved. The Mosquito achieved performance metal aircraft could not match at equivalent cost and production speed. Wooden construction enabled rapid manufacture using non-strategic materials and dispersed labor forces. Strategic impact. Photo reconnaissance shaped Allied bombing strategy. Precision strikes disrupted German logistics. Night fighters protected British cities. Fighter-bomber variants supported ground operations, but numbers alone do not explain legacy. The Mosquito demonstrated principle. Innovation thrives under constraint. Scarcity forces creativity. Limitations become advantages when understood correctly. Germany possessed superior metallurgy, advanced jet technology, powerful engines. Yet wooden British aircraft outperformed German designs through most of the war. Why? Because wood answered questions metal could not. How to build fast with limited materials. How to distribute production to survive bombing. How to create speed without armor. Ernest Stands touches the cool plywood wing behind the bench. The museum piece, a FB Mixed variant, rests silent. Canvas protects wood from weather, but eventually decay will win. Wood returns to earth. Metal endures longer, but endurance and victory are different measures. He walks toward home as evening light paints the coast gold, soft, strong, and stubborn as the plane they called a toy. The pilot follows slowly, cane tapping rhythm. They do not speak again. The sea speaks enough for both. History remembers victories, but wood remembers hands. And in the grain of every mosquito that flew, fought, and returned, there remains an imprint of carpenters who became armorers, of engineers who trusted trees over iron, of pilots who bet their lives on glue and faith, a toy that outran fear, a toy that won wars, a toy that was never fragile at all, just misunderstood by those who measured strength in weight rather than wisdom, and in war, as in wood, wisdom bends without breaking, and returns home when metal does not. The Mosquito proved that, and nothing built since has argued otherwise.